and Raging
I'm really
Bolt.
not surprised to see Lost Box kind of make its way back into the metagame.
We've got some lightning attackers, maybe trying to catch up on these Lugias that might be getting a little bit too big for their britches, but also the fact that a lot of decks have started to cut mana fee. Well, you know, I can't block the Dust Noirs, I can't block the Phantom Dives, maybe I don't need mana fee, and this opens up the Radiant Greninja that these Lost Zone decks used to enjoy these turbo turn 2 plays potentially with Moonlight Shuriken.
Yeah, this is going to be a really interesting matchup. So, I mean, if you know anything about Henry's list, he's not playing the exact same 60 he played to win Baltimore. It looks like it is just one or two cards different here. A few things have been mixed up. He's not playing that Pokemon League HQ anymore. That's something he had in his Baltimore list that actually probably would have been pretty good for him in this specific matchup. But he's playing Moonlit Hill, which is something I think we could see potentially come up if Hunter wants to go for some sort of like Sableye multi-prize turn plays.
Yeah.
But really here for Hunter, the big thing is going to be the fact that Henry Chao does not have mana fee in the deck. How quickly can Hunter get to Radiant Greninja's Moonlight Shuriken and try to target down those Curlies?
Precisely. You have the ultimate, just super fast, get everything in the Lost Zone, get the Moonlight Shuriken, try to keep the Ralts from getting evolved. The best thing about Henry Chao's list is now that he's kind of reawakened these rare candy lines, can just get that Gardevoir down and start slapping.
Yeah, it's great for Henry because he will have a response, right? If Hunter is able to pull off that Moonlight Shuriken play, take out a couple Ralts or take out a couple Curlia, Henry has that rare candy in his list. He's got that little bit of buffer to, you know, make up for a couple of Ralts or Curlia going down early.
When Gardevoir was at the height of its power, that was a lot of games that we had seen as players would just keep the routes under control, and Gardevoir seemed to just languish away under that pressure. But Moonlit Hill is going to be very interesting, you know, to kind of try to cancel out some Sableyes, some of these slower decks certainly.
It could come up for sure.
And as you were talking earlier about the previous Stadium Pokemon League headquarters, that was a tech for Ancient Box, which was very, very hyped going into Baltimore and fell off after it didn't convert as well as players had expected it to.
We do see some cards going out here for Hunter there. One Psychic Energy and one Sableye. Those are both one-of cards in his list. And then also a pair of Lost Vacuum. He's playing 3 Lost Vacuum, and I think he really is trying to lean on those to help him get more cards into the Lost Zone to get to Mirage Gate faster. So the fact that he has a couple prized could spell trouble for his early game pressure.
Yeah, I'm taking a closer look at this deck list. Not on Forest Sealstone, I don't think I'm seeing, which was the classic turbo packages. Getting the Forest Sealstone, then Lost Vacuuming it away. But jumping in, Henry Chao kicking us off with routes in the active spot and plays Hisuian Heavy Ball. This is an item that lets you look at your prize cards, take a basic Pokemon you find there to put in your hand, and then Hisuian Heavy Ball takes its place, shuffle up your prizes, put those back down.
Yeah, no basic Pokemon to take here for Henry, but he's got that information now. He knows what his 6 prize cards are. He'll have a much quicker deck search at this point. He doesn't have to take time to actually check his prize cards. Hisuian Heavy Ball is always one of my favorite cards to see in my opening hand, and oh no, this could be trouble here. Skarzig, Henry Chao just forced to pass. This is a massive opening here for Hunter Butler. If he can get 4 cards in the Lost Zone, we could see Cramorant spit innocently taking a knockout.
And Colress's Experiment already opening up. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Put 3 in your hand, 2 in the Lost Zone. Already partway there. Flower Selecting is going to be card number 3. And with 2 Lost Vacuums in the prize cards, there is one more in the deck to maybe get a cheeky bump on this Pokestop.
He's got a Switch card here and a Rescue Board. Those could be good cards to hang on to. The thing is, you know, Hunter wants to win this turn, but he doesn't have to win this turn, right? He wants to put himself in a position where he has that line open to potentially close out the game right now, but he doesn't want to put himself in a precarious situation where he finds himself, you know, down too many resources too early.
Sends another Colress's Experiment to the Lost Zone. And, you know, I'm guilty of this myself, Chip, is you overextend for this turn 1 knockout and then you leave yourself in the lurch if you whiff. Buddy Poffin is found, however, searching the deck for 2 basic Pokemon with 70 HP or less. Going to grab a couple more Comfey out of the deck, get more Flower Selecting, still has to find the Cramorant, and then a Switch.
Yeah, we saw as Hunter was checking his prize cards there. I think Henry was making a joke like, hopefully the Cramorant is prize, and Hunter gave him confirmation it's in there. Cramorant is here to party. Now the big thing for Hunter is just going to be, can he find a way to get it into play? He's got everything else he needs. He has a Switch card. He has a Rescue Board in hand. This Buddy Buddy Poffin here can get the other Comfey. He can even get one more Comfey if he wants to dig even a little bit deeper.
Exactly.
All he needs now is to find the Cramorant. And if he can just find a Nest Ball or the Cramorant itself, this game 1 is over.
The deck is fully capable of winning right now. The cards just need to fall into place. Hunter Butler not having a Hisuian Heavy Ball means that he's going to do a much more thorough deck search now to kind of extrapolate which cards are missing and are in the prize cards now. Sees that those lost vacuums aren't there.
Yeah, he could win the game right now, but it's not guaranteed. So he's going to take a moment, check his prize cards so he can operate with the best information moving forward, just in case he doesn't close it out.
Yeah, what's scary here too is even if Hunter Butler doesn't just win, Henry Chao still going to be a little bit of a step behind. Does have TM Evolution in the deck, so Buddy Poffin, TM Evo.
Yep.
Catching right back up with some Curlias in play could be very nice for Henry. But Buddy Poffin, as we said, finds 2 Comfeys. Those enter the bench immediately. Flower selecting already used on the active Comfey. Another one with Switch Car into the active.
And there's the Cramorant. That's the one
Rescue
Hunter
board,
needed.
and there is win. Game number 1 goes to Hunter Butler. Very unfortunate for Henry Chao, getting off to a rough start with only a single route.
It's the same thing we saw in the last round, right? A turn 1 win pretty much from the opponent. You know, after your opponent really just didn't do too much, Hunter's able to capitalize on Henry's slow start. I think Henry was really hoping that there would be a basic Pokemon for him to grab off the Hisuian Heavy Ball. It was not meant to be, though, and Hunter Butler gets the winning game 1.
And when we evaluate both of these decks against one another, this is kind of a historical matchup where Lost Zone was kind of at its peak at the same time Gardevoir was, and they were dueling back and forth, having the potential of these single prize early mid-game game plans, with Lost Box having to jump through a lot of hoops towards the later stages of the game, setting up multi-prize turns with Sableye, trying to find those angles. But in the modern era, it's Iron Hands all day.
Yeah, it is Iron Hands all day. It's kind of pivoted from like this V toolbox deck that we saw in the past, you know, when Dragonite V was still in the format. Of course, Raikou V is still hanging around, and Hunter is playing it in his list. But now more to those Paradox Pokemon, the Roaring Moon EX, the Iron Hands EX being kind of some of the main attackers here for Hunter Butler.
And if you are anyone else in the tournament, you know, you're going up against Henry Chao, see that he's still on the Gardevoir, and even after his big win in Baltimore, people kind of wrote it off. It's like, oh, that was a very intelligent reevaluation of Gardevoir, but it's developed a reputation, especially now, as a specialist deck. Only the biggest Gardevoir fans tend to stick on this list, and Henry Chao shows up and shows us what is the best part of this list, and that's starting Klefki in the active spot. Mischievous Lock, absolutely nuts, and a Buddy Poffin to get 2 routes. Henry Chao already off to a dominating position.
Yeah, that Klefki start is by far the best thing that Henry could have started in this matchup. That Mischievous Lock ability does turn down the abilities of all basic Pokemon in play, both yours and your opponent's. Henry's not going to mind too much. There's no basic Pokemon abilities on his side, save for maybe Radiant Greninja if he needed to rely on that. Doesn't look like he needs to here. But really, Klefki in the active shuts down the Lost Box deck entirely. You know, we see Hunter here is playing a one of Tatsugiri in his list. He's not going to be able to use that Attract Customers ability. He's not going to be able to use Flower Selectings with Comfeys if he can get them into the active spot. So really, if Hunter wants to pull off an attack here, he's going to have to get Klefki out of the active somehow.
Yeah, even if he wants to play the game, hope you've got your prime catcher, sir.
Yeah. One of Boss's orders as well, but then you're not playing Colress for turn. This Klefki really does slow down the pace of the game entirely.
A powerful start indeed. But Hunter Butler does have Nest Ball. Going to look through the deck once again, see what the options are. Ironically, you know, all the basic Pokemon, even Raikou V, Blood Moon, Ursaluna EX, Klefki's shutting them all down with Mischievous Lock. It's going to be difficult for Lost Zone to do its early homework, as we like to say, to prepare for these mid-late game combination plays that it needs to win.
And it's really important here for Henry that he's chosen to play something like Klefki as opposed to something like Fluttermane, which is something people have played in their Gardevoir lists in the past, shutting down just the active Pokemon's abilities, not just basic Pokemon, but all of active Pokemon's abilities. Hunter does play the Iron Bundle in his list, which would normally be able to push something like the Fluttermane out of the active spot, but not going to be an option here because Mischievous Lock, of course, shuts down the Hyper Blower of the Iron Bundle.
Absolutely rude. Henry has gone from this secret box, hyper-aggressive, accelerated Gardevoir to settling back into its highest reaches of its fame when it was this reactive, pseudo-controlling deck. And I don't know if he specifically predicted that Lost Zone was going to come out to be a bigger player in this tournament, or if Klefki ends up being an all-rounder.
It's really good against all of the Teal Mask Ogre Pond decks, right? Just push that up turn one, and Raging Bolt gets totally shut down in their early game. They just have such a hard time setting up if they don't have access to that Teal Dance ability. Now, the nice thing here for Hunter, the one thing you're hoping for when you go up against something like a Klefki or a Fluttermane in your opponent's active spot is I just hope I can find Colress early. It's the most important card in this deck. It fuels your Lost Zone. It's your draw power for your supporter card. So that's the one thing you're hoping as Hunter. Can I find Colress? And I do believe he already has one in hand.
One in hand. So this is 5 shots, maybe getting a prime catcher, getting this Klefki back onto the bench, opening up the rest of the hand.
Pretty ugly Pokestop there, just discarding 3 non-item cards. Going to be the Colress's Experiment now.
Yeah, with no rescue board, it makes it difficult to weave in these comfeys, but first order of business is still the Klefki. Hunter Butler's going to have to play this very slowly now, just going for Colress into Colress, hopefully. Couple Super Rods in the hand. That's not going to be relevant until later on in the game. Even Mirage Gate. This looks like a pretty dead selection overall from the Colress's Experiment.
It does have the Lost Vacuum. Definitely quite a consideration here. Super Odd, Lost Vacuum, and Nest Ball, all pretty good cards. Lost Vacuum is one of the ways that he can get more cards in the Lost Zone without using Flower Selecting, so something I think he was really debating hanging on to, but he valued getting another Pokemon in play here with this Nest Ball. Let's see what he goes for. He may just have to manually power up an attacker here.
Oh, I remember those days versus, what was it, Galarian Weezing, having to attach to your Cramorant, just be sad. But Radiant Greninja was found off of Nest Ball. Once again, no ability, no concealed cards, but this just goes to show that Hunter Butler is going to try to set up as best as he can, get all the pieces into place, so that eventually, when he finds the card to get rid of this Klefki out of the active spot, he'll have that explosive turn to probably make up all the lost ground. An attachment for turn to the Radiant Greninja is just going to stubbornly start establishing the threat of Moonlight Shuriken.
We'll kick it over to Henry now.
Looks like he's figuring out what to discard for Secret Box, his signature setup card, I think, at this point.
Yeah, it's definitely his signature card. It's a great card, but there's just so many powerful ace specs in the format. For a lot of people, it's hard to justify letting Secret Box be your choice of ace spec, but Henry's one of the ones who popularized it. He's going to start off this turn with a Pokestop, and that is a really nice Pokestop, getting an energy in the discard pile, and then also finding a couple item cards.
And Hisuian Heavy Ball paid off, well, it didn't really pay off in the first game, but I mean to say in terms of time saved.
Sure.
If not having to do a really thorough deck search, I think it's going to matter here, right? We're going to have a lot of single prize back and forth the way we saw in the first game, and there is always, and you know the players have this in the back of their mind, always the chance that the time is just going to get eaten up.
Yeah, definitely nice to grab a Ralts off of that. I think Henry is pretty satisfied there. If you can find a Technical Machine Evolution, we could see a couple of Curlia come into play. That's really what he'd like to do here to close things out.
Hunter Butler's trying to set up behind the Tatsugiri. Meanwhile, Henry Chao is absolutely fine with setting up behind the Klefki. By the time that Hunter Butler finds the out, Henry Chao is going to have a whole army of attackers with Psychic Embrace ready to let them unleash them onto Hunter's board. But just a manual evolution there to Curlia, no technical evolution, but that's fine. You still get to use Refinement because it's no longer a basic Pokemon. So Klefki's just oppressing Hunter Butler's setup, while Henry Chao is going to continue to draw tons of cards, get more Psychic Energy in the discard pile.
It looks like Henry's kind of shaking his head here, not really sure what to discard from the Secret Box. He's got everything he needs with the Secret Box in order to get the Technical Machine Evolution pulled off. He also has an Iono he could play as a supporter for turn, which would be really nice since Hunter just added a bunch of cards that he wants to his hand off of the Colress's Experiment. But Henry has to find 3 cards that he's willing to sacrifice here. He's debating getting rid of the energy, but if he gets rid of the energy, he doesn't have that piece in order to pull off the Technical Machine Evolution. So
yeah, Henry Chao is debating definitely discarding the Pheasantipity, maybe grab it back with a Night Stretcher later on in the game when you want to draw 3 cards. Putting Pheasantipity in play preemptively always feels like such a big liability.
Ooh, And this is interesting. We're going to see the Iono. Henry does not feel like he can give up 3 of the cards in his hand. Yeah, I agree with you. I think he would have been totally fine to lose the Pheasantipity. The problem is he's got to find 2 more cards to get rid of.
Yeah, and you want to keep those Night Stretchers. You want to keep those Bravery Charms.
Yes.
And just too many important resources. Henry Chao will let the secret box come around a little bit later on, hopefully. But after drawing 6 more off of Iono, both players will shuffle their hands, put them on the bottom of the deck, and then you draw cards equal to the prize cards you have remaining.
We're going to see the rare Joust for 10.
Just a little poke onto Tatsugiri. Oh no, 6 more turns, Chip.
Hunter's sweating over there for sure.
But Pokestop is going to be activated. 2 Pokemon go to the discard pile, and Buddy Poffin is added to Hunter Butler's hand.
And he's able to find a
Colress. Beautiful.
That is huge because a Colress was sent to the bottom of the deck off of the Iono, I do believe. So him finding another Colress here is really fortunate.
And if you are stuck under Mischievous Lock, getting the Colress back-to-back is your best bet to keep filling up the Lost Zone. Even though abilities are locked up, once you get enough in there, Mirage Gate's still going to open everything up that you're going to need.
Hunter's really thinking through if he can pull something off here. He does have Mirage Gate and a Lost Vacuum in his hand. He's got 4 cards in the Lost Zone at the moment. I mean, if he could play all 3 Lost Vacuum that he plays and, you know, have enough stuff to get rid of, he could technically attack this turn. Doesn't look like it's going to happen, though.
Yeah, just an attach return onto Radiant Greninja. 1 more turn, 1 step closer to getting a Moonlight Shuriken. Pal Pad to put 2 Colress's Experiments back into the deck. And now that he's got 4 cards in the Lost Zone, this is important, Chip. You can't just say, okay, well, now I can Cramorant.
Nope.
It's a basic Pokemon.
Yep.
Its ability, Lost Provisions, is also turned off by Klefki.
Yeah, I mean, you can just see how valuable the Klefki is for Henry Chao in this matchup. It is totally halting the pace of play, halting the game here for Hunter Butler.
And after a refinement from Kirlia, discarding a Buddy Poffin, I believe it was, to draw 2 more, finds a second Kirlia to evolve and use its ability. And if you are stopped from establishing your fast tempo, your aggressive game plan, Gardevoir is just going to style on you like this. Start drawing tons of cards, getting their entire deck thinned down, their strategy established. And I don't even know if Henry wants to start taking prize cards as of yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to put on the pressure at some point. If you give Hunter enough time, he's just going to manually power up that Radiant Greninja and start Moonlight Shurikening all of your benched Pokemon. So I think he wants to go in with an attack at some point, and I think we are going to see that happen probably right now as this Ultra Ball can find the Gardevoir EX, and with the Scream Tail being benched, its Roaring Scream attack can target benched Pokemon, namely that Radiant Greninja that Hunter has been working so hard to power up.
Yeah, you could see that Henry Chao discarded the Technical Machine Evolution. There's no more time for that. It's time to get aggressive. And Gardevoir EX, with its Psychic Embrace ability, you can attach Psychic Energy to your discard pile as much as you like. Every time you attach a Psychic Energy, that Pokemon's going to take 20 damage. And with the Bravery Charm, plenty of HP on Screamtail to Roaring Scream and knock out Radiant Greninja. Hunter Butler's threat now headed off at the pass, but now with Klefki being retreated onto the bench, we finally have attract customers, finding Colress's Experiment, and now a couple of Flower Selectings to boot. This is Hunter Butler's turn to try to get a foothold in this game now.
Yeah, huge opportunity here. Hunter finally gets to play the game. He's been slowed down so much by his opponent up to this point. We're going to see a Pokestop being used. It does grab 1 Mirage Gate. That can lead to some plays potentially here. He does need 3 more cards in the Lost Zone, but with a Colress in hand, with a couple of Comfeys, it looks like a switch card as well. We should be able to see something happen.
And Colress is indeed played. 5 cards from the top of the deck. Pick 3. The other 2 go away. Prime Catcher picked up. Buddy Poffin and another Colress is going to go into the Lost Zone. Once you get over that hump, start getting to 7, start getting your Mirage Gates active. You don't need the Colress's Experiments as much. You can see with the cards in the discard pile from Pokestop, the cards in the Lost Zone from Colress's Experiment itself, you know that Hunter's deck is very thin right now, and you just, the same way Gardevoir does, sculpt your top decks for the late game. Lost Vacuum also being played. You send one card from your hand to the Lost Zone, and then you can pick a tool, a stadium, send that to the Lost Zone as well. Using it on your own stadium is so great. You get to double dip. Now we're on 8 cards in the Lost Zone chip. Super Rods to get the Greninja back and a couple energies. So now Henry Chao is going to be under a lot of pressure of Mirage Gate plus Radiant Greninja in these latter turns.
It's kind of interesting because Hunter does have some options here. We could maybe even have seen him go for the Iron Hands EX, using Ampu very much on the active Scream Tail. It does require a pretty heavy commitment. You need to play 2 Mirage Gates in order to pull that off, whereas with this you only need to play 1 Mirage Gate. It actually does look like the Iron Hands is prized, so this is Hunter's really best option for sure here, using the Radiant Greninja, and it will be able to target a couple of Pokemon on Henry's side. Now the question is, what do you target? I think the Curly on the bench is the obvious one. What's the other prize card? Do you knock out the Ralts, or do you knock out this active Scream Tail, take the attacker out of play, and force Henry to find another?
I think you can't just let Scream Tail run around and start sniping your bench. It's very difficult to put up with that sort of pressure. We've got a switch cart first order of business. Comfey sending another Pokestop to the Lost Zone and an attachment onto Radiant Greninja. It is now ready to go. We just have to get it into the active spot with 9 cards in the Lost Zone. Cramorant is also found.
It does have switch. We could see Cramorant be the attacker as well, but I think while you've got Radiant Greninja, you want to use it. So let's take advantage of the fact that there's so many low HP Pokemon on Henry's side of the field. Let's take multiple prizes in a single turn and go from there. Ooh, actually going to bring up the Gardevoir EX, and this is, I think, Hunter trying to buy a little bit of time here. This Gardevoir does have 2
catcher.
This Gardevoir does have 2 retreat, and there are no energy cards in Henry Chao's discard pile, so Henry might have a hard time moving this active Gardevoir EX.
So, brings up the Gardevoir EX with Prime Catcher, finds a switch to use on Comfey, bring Radiant Greninja to the active spot. Goes around the Gardevoir to knock out the Curlia and the Ralts. Says, hey, if I can eventually deal with this Gardevoir, maybe with Roaring Moon EX, and it just won't have any energy acceleration.
It's really just a play to buy a turn. You know, Hunter was behind a little bit. You know, Henry got a lot more time to set up thanks to the Klefki, and he's just hoping that this Gardevoir is going to be stuck in the active spot. And then next turn he can go for another Moonlight Shuriken potentially and target more benched Pokemon, or go into something more powerful like the Roaring Moon, like you mentioned.
That is very important to know. Yeah, the Gardevoir EX has 2 retreat cost, if I recall correctly, but because all of the energy that had been put in the discard pile was then attached to Scream Tail to damage it and power up Roaring Scream, this is potentially going to be stuck. Very high-level play chip with 10 cards in the Lost Zone especially. There is the threat of Sableye eventually coming through. Henry Chao doesn't know when or where or if that Sableye is still available.
Yeah, this was really smart from Hunter. You know, he did exactly what he needed to do here. Now, Henry is kind of in a tough spot because do you bench another Ralts? If he puts it onto the bench, he's just asking for it to get Moonlight Shuriken right away. But you've got to put Ralts in play so you can get to Curlia, so you can get to another Gardevoir in the future potentially.
Benched Ralts and pass. There is an attack. There is a concealed cards to draw 2 by discarding the Psychic Energy. Buddy Poffin is played.
Yeah,
I love to whiff that.
I love the pace of play from Hunter. I've always enjoyed watching, you know, how quickly he plays the game. He uses this Buddy Poffin, knows he doesn't need to get anything, knows he just needs to shuffle the deck, right? Because good cards were put on the bottom last turn with the Iono. Shuffles up right away, and we're going to see him continue this turn. Looks like Colress's Experiment in the hand.
There is a Pokestop in hand as well. Could try to go digging for that Mirage Gate, get another Moonlight Shuriken, and Henry Chao was really caught off guard. I didn't see that play at first, but with all this energy stranded and with Curlia down, you can't discard with Refinement, and Mirage Gate is indeed found from Pokestop.
Yeah, now the question is how many energy cards are there in the deck, and you don't have to worry about that if you play Super Rod to put up to 3 energy or Pokemon back into the deck. This will guarantee that a Water Energy and 1 other type of energy card go back in for Hunter to pull out with the Mirage Gate. We're going to see another Moonlight Shuriken.
This is exactly what we saw when the Greninja came back from the discard pile, right? Just Super Rod, put it back in, Nest Ball, bring it out, Mirage Gate to get the energies you just put back in. It just keeps going.
And now the question, I think, for Hunter is, do you knock out the Screamtail at this point? I think obviously it makes sense to have not knocked it out last turn, because if you knock it out, it kind of defeats the purpose of your Prime Catcher play, because then all those energies go, of course, to the discard pile. But now, do you knock that out because it is Henry's really only attacker? Get rid of that. I mean, knocking out the Klefki doesn't seem super good other than giving you a prize card. Sure, it would mean Henry can, retreat this Gardevoir, but what's he going to retreat into would be the question.
I'm trying to look at the deck list for Henry Chao. There is potential for, Turo to scoop up the Screamtail, then you secret box to discard some Psychic Energy, try to power up this Gardevoir, because it can still attack with 3 energy, right? Use its Miracle Force. But now, with 2 back-to-back Moonlight Shurikens, Henry Chao has fallen very far behind in the prize race.
Let's see what Hunter chooses to knock out here. I think the Ralts is the obvious one, and it looks like it will be Klefki. He's going to force Henry to find a way to move this Gardevoir or potentially just lose the game on the next turn.
The Professor's Research is there, and you would love your hand to be full of energies in order to discard. So evaluating the deck list, this is what Henry has to figure out, right, Chip, is, okay, if I Professor's Research, I'm drawing a ton of cards. I believe you still have 1 Earthen Vessel left. No, you already used the Earthen Vessel. I think you have an Ultra Ball.
I think for Henry here, you've got the Screamtail set up, probably what he needs to do, and it's pretty low odds to get out of this situation. I mean, Hunter is pretty far ahead at this point in the game. 2 prize cards remaining to Henry's 5. Henry probably needs to try to reestablish some Pokemon in play and then go for the secret box to grab that Professor Turo. Use the Turo, get the Gardevoir out of the active spot. Hey, there's 1 energy going down, but just the 1 is not going to be quite enough. And now we'll use the secret box here, and I think Professor Turo's probably got to be grabbed.
If it's secret box for Turo, I would keep the Ultra Ball, right? So then you can discard 2 Psychic Energy. But Henry must have a different plan. There's
No,
Turo.
he's going to Turo the Gardevoir in the active spot, right? Pick that up and then just attack with the Screamtail.
I see. Rather than bringing up the Screamtail and getting the energy onto Gardevoir instead.
Yeah, not quite. And then Turo does just naturally discard the energy as well. Turo discards all attached cards from the
I'm a penny addict. I always forget about that caveat.
Yeah, there is
me, Chip.
We've got a few too many cards that do similar things in the format. Easy to lose track. Yeah, Penny only picks up basic Pokemon as well, right? So wouldn't be able to move the Gardevoir. But here, Turo is going to get it out of the active spot. And he's going to be able to rebench the Ralts. He's going to, try to reestablish something next turn. He actually is going to get rid of the Screamtail. Okay, so he's going this route instead. He does get those energies down. He's going to go for the counter catcher. Okay, this is actually decent. He's going to be able to KO this Roaring Moon.
After seeing the Roaring Moon EX, I think this is what really shifted Henry's play. Knowing that the Roaring Moon is going to hit Gardevoir EX for weakness, has to try to get this out of the way first so that Hunter Butler can't take 2 prize cards as easily.
Yeah, I didn't see the Drifloon hanging around as a play here for Henry. It was hanging out in the hand, though. He's able to take 2 prize cards. Now, Hunter Butler could win the game this turn. He's got 2 prize cards left. He could win by either KOing the Gardevoir EX on the bench or using Iron Hands EX to KO this active Drifloon. And he doesn't have that many cards left in his deck, so...
Yeah, attract customers. There is a Colress there, and 2 Mirage Gates are the final 2 cards. And if I look at the remaining prize cards, I think that Hunter Butler is only on like 1 Colress in the prizes or something. Needs a couple Super Rods certainly to get more energy down for these Mirage Gates.
He would need a Super Rod here, and he does have one in hand. But I don't know if he has... Because he could Colress for the 2 Mirage Gate and put them both in his hand. He also could Pokestop for the 2 Mirage Gate and put them into his hand. I don't think he quite has the play to just win right away.
Lost Vacuum.
That's pretty
to
good.
get rid of the Bravery Charm.
And that gets an
knocks
energy.
out the Drifloon.
I think he's got it now. He can... Oh, no, because now the Iron Hands doesn't really do anything for him. He can't get back the Roaring Moon. He could get it back. Okay, here's what he can do.
The Pokestop gives him both Mirage Gates.
It's kind of awkward. So he can Super Rod back the Roaring Moon and a couple energy cards. He can Colress to grab the 2 cards, but he then can't Mirage Gate because the cards will be put into his hand from the Colress. So it's close, but he doesn't quite have it. He doesn't have like a Nest Ball in his hand to just go grab the Roaring Moon. Blood Moon Ursaluna isn't doing enough to win. He may just have to Super Rod and then hit with Cramorant here.
What a bizarre turn of events. Hunter Butler has drawn through his entire deck, has been dominating ever since getting around that Klefki, getting the Moonlight Shurikens back to back. But Henry Chao with one big Gardevoir in play with 270 HP. This is the final boss, the final obstacle for Lost Zone box. And these big numbers of HP is something the deck has historically always struggled with.
Yeah, I don't think he can win now, so we're probably just going to have to see Cramorant hit for 110.
Is there a way to deal enough damage so that Henry Chao can't use Psychic Embrace to power up Miracle Force?
Could hit for 240 with the Blood Moon, but it's the same situation. He can't get the Blood Moon and leave the energy in the deck. It's the same situation he found himself in with the Roaring Moon not being able to close out the game.
All right, so just attaching an energy to Tatsugiri, so it's another pivot.
Yeah, Tatsugiri
does hit.
Tatsugiri, I think, makes more sense than attaching to something like the Comfey, because you know that if you get Iono'd, Tatsugiri would almost definitely find you Colress, and which would find you, hopefully, a game-winning combo of cards.
Pokestop being used. You look at the top 3 cards of your deck, discard them, and then you re-add any items you find. So all those Pokemon and supporters just stay in the discard pile.
It still feels so tough here for Henry Chao. We do see the Moonlight Stadium come into play, which can be used to heal this Gardevoir. I don't think it's going to be any number of relevant healing, though. I mean, it's still going to be able to be KO'd by Blood Moon Ursaluna.
160 HP remaining. Big Professor's Research just ditching that hand, trying to find something else.
Something, anything, but he doesn't find too much here. There's a Night Stretcher.
Just absolutely masterful for Hunter Butler to exploit the fact that Henry Chao had used all of the energy that were in the discard pile onto Screamtail and didn't have a way to retreat Gardevoir EX.
I mean, Henry can Night Stretcher back the Screamtail, or I guess it would be better to do the Drifloon, and then Bravery Charm it, and then only put 2 damage counters on it, knock out the Cramorant, and hope that Hunter doesn't have a way to take that single prize KO.
So Night Stretcher finds Klefki. That is benched. Bravery Charm attached back to Klefki, and then retreats Gardevoir.
Okay, this is kind of interesting because now Blood Moon's ability isn't active. And maybe Hunter can't attack. I think Hunter can't win this turn again.
Yeah, is the Sableye still prized?
Sableye's in his hand, but I think his Psychic Energy is not accounted for. Oh, and he should have it here. If he has Lost Vacuum, does he have Lost Vacuum?
Mirage Gate, switch card.
Oh, I think he miscounted. I don't think he realized that the Bravery Charm got attached to the Klefki here. He has no cards left in his deck. He's played switch cards. He can go into the Radiant Greninja, but that doesn't do anything for him. I think Hunter is going to deck out and lose.
Oh, no. He miscalculated there.
He could have just waited. Actually, I don't actually know what ways Hunter had to take
with the Klefki in the active slot. That means he has Cramorant is not an option as an attacker. Blood Moon Ursaluna is not available as an attacker. It forces you to have specifically Sableye, right?
I think Hunter probably just should have not used the Pokestop last turn. The turn that he milled his whole deck and drew those last 2 Mirage Gates. It forced him to play his Super Rod right away, but he couldn't win the game on the spot. So it forced him to play the Super Rod to put more cards back into his deck, and then because he had already used his Super Rod, Henry's like, well, I know you just put the Blood Moon back. Let me send up this Klefki and just hope that you don't have an answer. Really heads-up play by Henry, playing to his like low percentage outs and still finding a way to close out a game number 2 and force a game 3.
So bizarre. We talked so much. The primary point for Klefki is that it stops the flower selectings and abilities of that nature, but it is effectively immune to Cramorant and Blood Moon Ursaluna, so it becomes this fantastic wall in the late stages of the game. This was the first Moonlight Shuriken.
I mean, yeah, this was Hunter's game to lose, to be honest. I mean, he
yeah.
got so far ahead after Henry slowed the game down so much early on. And I have to think that there was like a miscalculation or something somewhere along the way, and Hunter just ran out of resources, ran out of gas at the end.
That's a game that you have to evaluate because Lost Zone has always been this way, where a decision you make turn 1, turn 2 comes back to haunt you, if you'll pardon the phrase, in the late game. And I think that Hunter did actually discard one lost vacuum to Okoro's experiment earlier on, and if he had that other lost vacuum to take the HP off of Klefki, then Moonlight Shuriken would have got him there.
Yeah, it's so tough with Lost Box because you need so many cards like right then, right now, right? So I'm sure something that Hunter kept off that Chorus was really important at the time, but then the Lost Vacuum not being available ends up being, you know, something that makes it so he doesn't close out the game. It looks like we are getting into this one, and Hunter has chosen to go first in this matchup.
Henry Chao, fortunately for Hunter, not starting Klefki. So Comfey's now in the active, going for a Nest Ball first. It's great when you're able to get that deck search first before you start flower selecting, but Iron Hands and Roaring Moon EX both in the prizes, Chip.
Yeah, and the combination of Monkey Dory and the one basic Darkness Energy in the prizes for Henry Chao, as well as Counter Catcher. A couple of awkward things for really both of these players. The Super Rod in the prizes for Hunter is kind of annoying and awkward. You know, it's really important for this deck to have full access to all of its Pokemon, all of its energy cards at basically any given time. And yeah, so one of those being down, a couple of switch cards there for Hunter as well, makes it a little harder to pivot around the field. But he's going to really try to take full opportunity of this turn, of this opening. If Henry gets a turn to put Klefki active and Hunter has not already established a few cards in the Lost Zone, we're going to see him have a really slow game once again. So he's going to want to try to get through as much of the deck as possible, try to use at least 2, maybe 3 flower selectings.
Yeah, when you choose to go first versus second, you're leaning even more on your Comfeys and their flower selectings to start filling up the Lost Zone, because you can't just immediately open your turn with the Chorus' experiment, hoping to maybe get Prime Catcher to move that Klefki. But again, a thorough deck search coming through from Hunter Butler. This is an archetype that is 100% based around knowing exactly where all 60 cards of your deck are at any given time. We saw how important it was to use the Mirage Gates in tandem with Nest Balls and Super Rods, so that even your discard pile is live and is a mini deck for you to utilize. With 16 minutes left on the clock, these players are going to start going rapid fire. Pokestop enters play, 3 cards seen. That's going to be Lost Vacuum and Mirage Gate added to Hunter's hand, with Boss's orders being discarded. Concealed cards being used by Radiant Greninja to discard the Darkness Energy to draw 2. And finally, Flower selecting to see 2 more. Do we want the Darkness Energy or do we want Lightning?
Yeah, these are the big questions. These are the difficult spots you find yourself in as a Lost Box player. You don't really love Lost Zoning any of your energy cards, to be honest.
So there's 2 Lightning Energy in the deck, so there is still hope for a potential Ampy very much down the road.
Yeah, and it can depend on which energies are prized as well, right? Hunter needs access to 2 of his 3 basic Darkness Energy to be able to attack with Roaring Moon. So if he, you know, even though Roaring Moon is prized, you know, he could Heavy Ball for it potentially at some point. Actually doesn't even play Heavy Ball. That's something I'm so used to seeing in these Lost Zone decks.
And Pokestop to find a secret box. This puts Henry Chao once again in that position to maybe set up this TM evolution, these more aggressive Gardevoir plays. There was game 2, right, where Henry just slowed things down with the Klefki, but here in game 3, Henry could show his signature play style from Baltimore of getting an early Gardevoir established and just start swinging for the fences.
Yeah, Henry also has an Arven in the hand, so that can get the TM evolution. It's another way he can find it. Of course, Secret Box could let him pop off a little bit more, right? You know, Secret Box for the evolution and then research away the hand. It kind of depends on what else is in Henry's hand. You know, what cards does he want to make sure he has access to maybe on the future turn?
And he's doing a deck search right now.
It looks like we've got a conversation with the judges happening.
Was there maybe a way that he handled the deck or the Pokestop that...
Yeah, I didn't see anything wrong with the Pokestop.
And then he played Buddy Buddy Poffin. Maybe a sleeve broke?
Yeah, we're going to try to... It looks like we
Yeah.
got a technical issue going on the stage. Something with the headsets potentially.
Okay. Yeah, so just the headsets are being sorted out. We got to be a little bit quiet, Chip, because the players can hear us.
The joys of live broadcasting.
Yeah, don't worry, both of you. The audience loves you. We're rooting for you. This is a great game 3.
Yeah. And it looks like they've gotten it back, and we're resuming play. No problem at all. Henry here resolving this. Buddy Buddy Poffin looking for a couple Pokemon.
And, of course, while you're in the deck, you're going to take stock, see how many routes I've got access to, etc. Klefki's in there. And Klefki, you know, this is the opportunity, if Henry doesn't want to go for this Technical Machine evolution play, can Buddy Poffin now for Klefki, just retreat the Radiant Greninja, and try to put a stopper on Hunter Butler's setup. There's only one Comfey in play in the active spot. No Chorus's Experiment potentially to get out of this bind, and it's just a matter of how Henry wants to approach this one.
Yeah, Henry's got a bunch of...
counting the vessels.
Yeah, has the vessels, so that can guarantee the TM evolution play here. It is going to just be the Arven, maybe saving Secret Box for next turn. Has a few pieces that he'd like to hang on to. Looks like Rare Candy already in the hand is an option potentially.
Discards Counter Catcher to the Earthen Vessel to find 2 Psychic Energy out of the deck, add those into the hand. Earthen Vessel's so good, just trade out 1 card from your hand to get 2 energies, and this can be a combination. They don't have to be the same, and yeah, so many decks utilize this card. I think a lot of players in the audience are very familiar with it at this point.
Now we may see Henry here, and I think I would like this play a lot. Just attach to the active Greninja and then retreat into Klefki. And then go for the TM evolution maybe next turn. Try to slow Hunter down as much as possible. You've already seen that Klefki slows him down so much. So even though you can't pull off your TM Evo play, he's got it set up where he can do it next turn. He can attach the TM Evo to this active. He can Secret Box for a research and draw a bunch of cards. And he knows that based on last game, this Klefki is really tough for Hunter to deal with.
And of course, seeing your opponent's entire deck last game, you know that this isn't one of those Lost Zone builds that's trying to use Roxanne or anything. These disruptive cards that are built for late game aren't too favored in the current meta because of Pheasantipity and the like. A lot of these aggressive decks are very easily able to draw out of those supporters in the late game. But on Hunter's side, Radiant Greninja is still there, of course. Couple more Comfeys found from Buddy Poffin, and I just love this card so much. Just a beautiful setup. Any basic Pokemon with 70 HP or less, you just grab 2 of them, put them on the bench, and he does have Chorus's Experiment to look at the top 5 and find an out against this Klefki.
Yeah, looking for an out, and there really is only one out. It is the Prime Catcher. It doesn't have it just yet, but at least having a Chorus turn after turn after turn lets you slowly build up that Lost Zone and slowly get to a position where you can get to the 7 in the Lost Zone, even with Mischievous Lock in the active spot.
This is lining up to be a repeat of game number 2, right, Chip, where you have the threat of the Greninja, you keep attaching those energies and putting a clock on your opponent, and Hunter Butler is just going to get rid of the Pokestop immediately with Lost Vacuum.
Hunter has got the pieces to attack with Radiant Greninja here. He can put this rescue board on this active Comfey, retreat into the Radiant Greninja, and Lost Vacuum away the rescue board. That would get him to 7 cards in the Lost Zone, and he's got Mirage Gate. He's going to go for Moonlight Shuriken right now.
Absolutely unreal. The triple Lost Vacuum play that Hunter Butler didn't have access to last game now can go in.
Yeah, being able to play 2 of them here. Of course, Lost Zoning a card from the hand as well. Now activating the Mirage Gate. As long as another water energy is in the deck, which it is, he'll be able to Moonlight Shuriken. And now there is a little bit of a question. Target down 2 Ralts, really try to stunt Henry's draw power through the game. Or do you get rid of this Klefki that is so pesky and so annoying to deal with, but give your opponent an opportunity to set up multiple Kirlias into play?
I like taking out both routes, I think. If Henry is forced to take that middle step with a Kirlia and try to discard more Psychic Energy, it might allow Hunter to get in another Moonlight Shuriken. And if there's a single routes available, it forces Henry to Rare Candy it to try to be aggressive and knock out this Radiant Greninja before it's too late.
And another thing as well is that Hunter has already gotten to 7 in the Lost Zone, so the Klefki, while it is still annoying, right, you would still like to use Flower Selecting, it is nowhere near as impactful. Now that you have access to Mirage Gate, you can still power up attackers, even with this Klefki in the active spot.
And with Hunter Butler having the 3rd Lost Vacuum, this is going to be really important to keep our eyes on, folks, is being able to get rid of a Bravery Charm so the Screamtail and the Drifloon are knocked out by an item card. 2 prizes now taken, Iron Hands EX entering Hunter Butler's hand and into the fray.
Now Henry has the Secret Box, which can find him Night Stretcher, which would actually be really good because if you remember, all the way back to turn 1, a Gardevoir was discarded from Pokestop, so he could use the Secret Box, go find that Night Stretcher, bring back the Gardevoir, and he's already got Rare Candy in hand, so he can get a Gardevoir EX established right now.
Hunter did opt to knock out that Klefki. It's not just a matter of, well, my Lost Zone's already filled up. It's this Pokemon makes it so difficult for me to use my Cramorant and my Blood Moon Ursaluna. So it's the same way how you try to knock out the Manaphy, force your opponent to go back into their discard pile to find it. Henry Chao, at some point along this journey, has to take a pit stop to get the Klefki back in play.
He's going to need to make sure he can find 3 energy cards. I think there are just 2 in the discard pile right now for Henry. Don't know if he has 1 more available, but he needs to have 3. I'd have to think that Gardevoir EX is probably going to be his best attacking option here. You know, Hunter does, of course, have that Roaring Moon EX, but in order to attack with Roaring Moon EX, he's going to need to find it. He's going to need to get a Mirage Gate plus a Darkness Energy. He's already got a Darkness Energy in the discard pile. And then, even though Henry doesn't know that the Roaring Moon is prized, but he should play like the Roaring Moon is still a threat available. Hunter doesn't have access to it, but Henry needs to keep it in mind whenever he's prepping everything he's doing.
And especially earlier on in the game when Hunter had the choice, sent that Lightning Energy to the Lost Zone, kept the Darkness Energy. So Henry already recognizes that in this matchup, Hunter is going to try to use that Roaring Moon EX whenever possible. And because of Mirage Gate, the potential to burst out with these attackers is so great. Refinement being used on Curlia now, discarding 1 card from the hand to draw 2. And Pheasantipity is now found as well to use Flip the Script after a Pokemon has been knocked out to draw 3 more.
Yeah, another one of the signature cards, I think, for Henry from his run in Baltimore. A card that I think most people wouldn't think to include in their Gardevoir deck, but it's served him well up to this point, and it's doing pretty strong for him here right now, too.
And so 3 Psychic Energies were assembled in the discard pile to be reattached to the active Gardevoir EX using its Psychic Embrace ability. In exchange for taking 60 damage, those 3 energies are attached directly to it, and now Miracle Force takes the knockout versus Radiant Greninja.
Now, Henry is definitely just crossing his fingers here, hoping, okay, please don't have the response with Roaring Moon EX. And we know that Hunter doesn't because it is prized, but yeah, that's really what Henry is crossing his fingers for here. Hunter does send up the Comfey, it looks like.
And so with Comfey in the active, no Klefki can finish off getting the final handful of cards in the Lost Zone, maybe try to start sprinkling around some Sableye plays. Henry Chao showed the Moonlit Hill last game, and this is a card that kind of ebbs and flows within Gardevoir, so is going to be much more specific about where the Lost Mine damage counters are going to go.
So Hunter has Nest Ball, and he has Mirage Gate. He also does have Hisuian Heavy Ball, I think. Did I see? Yeah, there is Hisuian Heavy Ball. Okay, so I misspoke earlier. I didn't see it on my first pass over the list. So he does have Hisuian Heavy Ball. That is a way he could get the Roaring Moon EX right now. He would need to find another Darkness
goes to the
Energy.
Lost Zone. And so after the Hisuian Heavy Ball is played, this means that Roaring Moon EX can be picked up. So this is Henry Chao's nightmare. He was hoping not to see this Pokemon, but Hisuian Heavy Ball provideth.
And it looks like Hunter already has a Darkness Energy as well. And with Super Rod in the hand, he can put back the other Darkness Energy that's in the discard pile. I think there actually is still one in the deck as well even. So he'll have the ability to power up the Calamity Storm. And the other huge thing as well here for Hunter is that he was able to find a Stadium off of that Iono. So now he can use the Calamity Storm instead of having to go for a Frenzied Gouging and put himself down to just 30 HP remaining.
Very tough choices while being made by Hunter. Dark Energy, 100% is going to be picked up. Radiant Greninja. So this was the choice, right? Do I want to get Greninja and Water, threaten more Moonlight Shuriken? Do I want to get this Lightning back and also try to lean into Iron Hands to close out the game after this knockout? But then after the Mirage Gate is being played, these are going to be 2 energies pulled directly out of the deck onto Roaring Moon EX.
Yeah, so that's the question for Hunter is like, yes, this is how I'm getting these 2 prize cards. How am I getting my next 2 prize cards? And I think that's why we saw the Radiant Greninja go back into the deck. If Henry benches another low HP Pokemon, Radiant Greninja can close out the game. Iron Hands is a way as well, of course, but that does require both of the 2 remaining Mirage Gate for Hunter Butler to be utilized. Could be a little difficult to pull off.
And not to mention the fact that because Henry Chao does not have Manaphy in this list, we kind of spoke earlier, Chip, about the falling off of Manaphy. The Radiant Greninja's Moonlight Shuriken is an omnipresent threat. And as you said, Calamity Storm to knock out Gardevoir EX to take 2 more prizes. This is a healthy Roaring Moon EX still living in the active spot, and Henry Chao is tapping his discard pile in consternation, thinking about how to respond to this massive Mon.
Yeah, what does he do at this point? If he can get a Gardevoir EX, he could knock this out with a Drifloon, but then that opens him up, of course, to getting Iron Hands EX'd, and I think that's the thing. He's just going to have to take a knockout and just cross his fingers and say, I hope you don't have it, Hunter.
Kirlia's on the bench. This can be evolved into another Gardevoir, but hitting 230 damage is going to require not just a Gardevoir, but a Scream Tail or something to get this Pokemon out of the active spot, because now it can just start swinging. Even if you Frenzy Gouging on this Pheasantipity or the Gardevoir EX, you're taking your last 2 prize cards. So Henry Chao is going to hopefully, at least try to put some chip damage on this to try to take that play off the table.
Yeah, could have even just still go for the Frenzy Gouging. I don't think Hunter would mind too much. Just go for the Frenzy Gouging. Sure, Henry gets a couple prizes, but if it's taking Hunter's last 2 prizes, it doesn't matter too much.
There's 2 Gardevoir EX in the deck, so there's one in the discard pile now. Refinement and Concealed cards, discarding more energy, drawing more cards, finds the second Gardevoir EX. So that's part 1. Now the next attacker needs to be established to try to trade up into Roaring Moon EX. Drifloon is there being eyeballed by a Nest Ball. Needs a Bravery Charm as well. There's so many pieces that Henry Chao does need, and because Hunter did such a good job of just knocking out those routes, knocking out those potential Kirlias, right? There hasn't been enough card draw here on Henry Chao's side to have these pieces in hand already.
Yeah, needs an energy as well to retreat this active, which it does look like he has. He'll be able to retreat.
Oh, and there is a Bravery Charm in hand. Okay, Henry's putting it together.
Yeah, has the pieces to get this knockout. And I think, I don't think he's played a supporter yet, so we could see Iono being used. But the problem is that Hunter has set himself up pretty nicely. He's not gotten through quite as much of the deck as he did in the last game. He is down a couple of Lost Vacuum, like we mentioned, so the Bravery Charm getting discarded or lost zoned is something to think about, but there's really not much Henry can do about it. He's just kind of got to swing, and he's just got to hope here.
Yeah, puts the Moonlit Hill in play. You see he was really struggling with this just to get it out of the hand. Doesn't want it back in the deck off of Iono, but you're putting a bit more fuel onto Calamity Storm. There's only a little under 3 minutes left on the clock in game number 3. Henry Chao has a lot of ground to cover with 5 prize cards remaining, with Hunter Butler needing only 2 more. It looks like things are falling out in his favor, certainly.
The Flip the Script finds a couple more cards, and here comes the Drifloon. It's going to take a 1-hit KO, and the big question here is, what does Hunter have access to with just a couple of cards? Can he piece together the win on this turn? With 3 minutes left, now down to 2 minutes, I think we should see a conclusion to this game. Of course, we'll go down to time and then plus 3 more turns.
Yep, and I love the Buddy Pop in there just to shuffle up the deck after Iono. There were some good cards that Henry wants, but after 80 damage being put on the Drifloon, then Balloon Blast does 30 for each. That's 240 to knock out the Roaring Moon EX. Back over to Hunter, Colress's Experiment.
I think he's got the 3 perfect cards in his hand to start with. He has the Iron Hands, he has the Colress, and he has a Switch, so that's a pretty nice start. And off this Colress, we do see 1 Mirage Gate. That's 1 piece he definitely needs. He also could win with Prime Catcher plus Blood Moon with a Mirage Gate to put some energies onto that. That's something he's going to think about here. I expect to see him keep the Blood Moon because that is a play that's available.
Yeah, with the early knockout on the Klefki, Hunter Butler had already cleared a path for the Blood Moon to be part of this late game symphony.
He's thinking of lost zoning it. I think keeping Blood Moon seems pretty good. Yeah, you want to have that as an option to just close out the game right away as well. I also don't know how many energy are left in the deck. It looks like there's 5 in the discard pile, 1 in the lost zone. He
just has to find Prime Catcher, right, and then just attach to Blood Moon, try to knock. Well,
he needs 2 energy on the Blood Moon because Henry's only taken 3 prize cards. So
yeah, so it's a Mirage Gate
on it. Yeah, it needs the Mirage Gate. It needs to make sure there's enough energy in the deck. We do see Flower Selecting here. It's a Boss and a Nest Ball. Boss could be a way to close it out. Is there enough energy in the deck? That is just the question here.
Switch card has to keep digging. Another Flower Selecting to see 2 more. And energy, and there's Prime Catcher.
Yeah, Boss can't be used, of course, because Colress's Experiment was already used here. So he does find the Prime Catcher. He's keeping track of all the cards
You
here.
can see how much he has to calculate here. With 30 seconds left on the clock, Hunter Butler keeping an eye on where every energy is.
And if he has 2 energy cards in the deck, he wins the game right here. And there's 7 accounted for, 5 in the discard pile, 2 in the lost zone. That's 7. So as long as he's checked his prize cards properly, he's double checking here, wants to make sure he doesn't have a mishap like in game number 2. All he has to do is bench this Blood Moon, play the Mirage Gate, and then play Prime Catcher to
His hands
win
are
the
shaking.
game. He wants to make sure.
Is my math right? Yes, 2 energy. So now Prime Catcher brings up Blood Moon Ursa Luna, brings up Pheasantipity for Hunter Butler to take his remaining 2 prize cards.
He just wanted to make sure nothing happened like it did in game number 2. He had a misstep there, a game he probably should have won, gets away from him. You can see him rolling his eyes at himself. He knows that he maybe is getting away with one here after making a mistake like that, but he does come away with the win in the match.
That's a lesson to carry forward in the tournament, to carry forward in his Pokemon career. Henry Chao probably was not expecting to go up against Lost Zone, but this is a matchup that has played out time and time again since Gardevoir EX has entered Standard. And Henry Chao still showing us that Gardevoir has a lot of life still in this metagame.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is a matchup that's probably a little tough for Henry after we see those few games play out. It seems like Lost Box in this meta, with these 2 lists specifically against this build of Gardevoir, it does feel like Lost Box is a little favored. But yeah, Henry, I think, played really well. I mean, to find that win condition in game number 2 was super smart. Bravery Charm on the Clef Key was a great play, and Hunter does end up decking out. And that's what separates good players from great players, being able to find those alternate win conditions.
So this puts Hunter Butler at 6-0, which is a day 2, folks. Remember, based on the number of competitors for this tournament right now, 6-0 will do it.
Yeah, only 8 rounds today, so a 6-2 record needed to make it into day number 2.
So many Moonlight Shurikens, my goodness.
Yeah, and the Moonlight Shurikens were about to be the story of game number 2, but what ends up being the story of game number 2 is this Pokestop right here. I think he shouldn't have used it, and then he played the Mirage Gate and had no cards left in the deck, and just was like, yeah, I can't win. I have to concede. I guess I'm going to deck out next turn.
We have to go back and reevaluate what the choice was off of Colress or Flower Selecting that forced him to give up that Lost Vacuum, because if you have that to get another fresh knockout on a Drifloon or a Screamtail, you're sitting pretty.
And then game 3, you know, Henry, I think, got off to a really strong start, but Hunter's early game was just so good. That turn with the double Lost Vacuum, adding 4 cards to the Lost Zone out of nowhere, seemingly, in order to get the turn 2 attack off with Radiant Greninja. Imagine being able to get off a turn 2 attack when Klefki is your opponent's active Pokemon. That is incredibly impressive. Yeah,
I loved the way the Pokestops just facilitated this heavy Lost Vacuum build, and the decision to knock out that Klefki in game number 3 to clear a path for Ursaluna to be this final win condition. 2 energies, the final 2 energies, if I recall, left in the deck for Mirage Gate and Prime Catcher to seal the deal. Hunter Butler advancing to day 2 with Lost Zone Box.
Yeah, well played for both of our players. You know, Hunter, I think, is going to want to shake that one off a little bit. He does get the win, but there was a little bit of rocky roads there in the second game especially. And then in game 3, he had it, and he was just like, I just got to make sure. He counts all his energy. He's like, okay, double checks his notes. Did I prize any energy cards?
Triple check the energy.